This video is brought to you by Magic Spoon. Hey noble ones. Medieval-inspired films, video games and novels have created this image of the knight in shining armor very vividly in our minds. And oftentimes, together with his sword, horse and harness, long locks, dark or blonde, accompany this image of knightly aristocracy, giving it, we could say, a time-long-gone feel. Now, since I've rocked long hair already several times in my life, my question for you today is this. If I put myself in medieval plate armor and was sent to the medieval period, would I blend in? Or would people think that I look weird? How real is this idea of knights in association with long, flowy hair? To approach this systematically, we first of all need to properly define the word long hair, identifying what we mean exactly. Because one of the things we'll see today is that since long and short hair are very loosely descriptive adjectives, our own culture and personal perspective shape and change their meaning, and in general, the mental image we perceive. Some people will describe this length of hair on a man as long hair already, while a very similar length of hair in a woman could be referred to as short. So for clarity's sake, even though with my current length we have a rather extreme example, we'll consider any length of hair that reaches the shoulders on a man as long. Of course, when we are discussing knights, we are referring to the medieval period. What's key to understand before we begin looking at iconography and reading period sources is the length of the Middle Ages. We are dealing with 1,000 years, and fashion changed a lot during this time. I mean, I'm sure any of you watching could spot a hairstyle from the 80s when put together with current hairstyles. And that's what, a difference of 40 years. So, precise timing is the first gear of our research mechanism today. Secondly, the geographical area, the culture of reference. A specific custom in, say, 11th century England won't tell us much about 15th century Italy or 13th century Spain. Alright, with all of that established, the shared elements in the mechanism that supported the social construct of the meaning of hair in the medieval period shall now be examined. Hair in the medieval period often had a distinctive function. This is why the look of any given character in iconography should be seen as multi-dimensional, both as an act of personal display and as a marker of identity. In other words, it helped dividing people based on their social status and social position within a rather complex feudal society. Hair could also indicate social rank and marital status. To fully understand how the mechanism operated, allow me to digress for a brief moment. The knight, alongside the monk and the ploughman, can be identified as some of the cultural archetypes of the Middle Ages. In a way, they embodied a certain level of solidity, a distinct corporeal identity. And monks are a great example of this because of the fact that they had to adopt a very distinctive hairstyle. And what the heck is this guy doing anyways? Gods! There is thus little doubt that hairstyles held significance to people in the past. Monks often wore a tonsure haircut, which imitated Christ's crown of thorns, and it seems like some believed that the bald part in the head allowed God to reach them more directly. Now, regardless people actually believed this or not, it was part of the vow to leave behind the secular world and become servants of God. Hence, we can already see that having a certain haircut in the medieval period could mean entering clerical status, which according to the law of the church, enshrined in the Council of Chalcedon in 451, decreed those that have become clerics, well, not that kind of clerics, or who have entered a monastery should neither enter the army nor take on secular honors. And sometimes I don't think people appreciate enough how much this idea of, if you have this haircut, it means you have already entered clerical status was important in the medieval period. So much so that it was historically used as a weapon against people who, say, were opponents to the seat of a king. They were literally forced to take the haircut, because that already disqualified them for trying to become kings. There was a combination between hair and the production of identity. Men may have lived by the sword, but their social position could metaphorically die by the scissors. And now I'd like to take a moment to mention the kind sponsor that made this video possible, Magic Spoon. I'm really happy to be able to present to you this brand because both my wife and I really like it. Magic Spoon cereals have 0 grams of sugar, 13 or 14 grams of protein, and only 4 to 5 net grams of carbs in each serving. Honey Nut has 1 gram of sugar. While Magic Spoon cereal bars have 1 gram of sugar, 10 grams of protein, 4 net grams of carbs, and only 130 calories per bar, only 140 calories per serving. They're also keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and low-carb. Also, they've got a lot of flavors available, but my favorite is chocolate. Growing up, cereal was one of my favorite types of food for breakfast, but I had to give it up because I realized it was full of sugars and junk that you're not really supposed to eat. Now, I personally really like Magic Spoon because it gives me an opportunity to start training again. As you know, I used to train, but then I stopped, unfortunately. But the thing is that since Magic Spoon gives me an opportunity to eat something high in protein, which also doesn't really have carbs, which allows me to control the amount of carbs that I want to have in my diet. And it tastes really good. It's a great input for me to start again training because I'm thinking, well, I'm having this protein now, I might as well train. So click the link in the description below and get your own Magic Spoon cereal box today. You can build your very own variety box and can choose from the best-selling cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, cookies and cream and maple waffle flavors, plus other awesome flavors including honey nut, blueberry muffin and cinnamon roll. You can even add the cookies and cream and cocoa peanut butter flavor cereal bars to your variety box. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. So what are you waiting for? Click the link below and use the code Metatron for $5 off, or go to magicspoon.com/Metatron to save $5 off your order today. And big thanks to Magic Spoon for sponsoring my video. If there is one specific title in medieval society that is often connected with long hair, it's that of a king. Of course, this wasn't always the case, but we can find specific references to kings who did wear their hair long. There is a curious mention made by Gaius Sollius Modestus Apollinaris Sidonius, a 5th century diplomat and bishop, who tells us about the Merovingian kings, so the ruling family of the Franks from the 5th century to 751. He says, the hair is never cut from the heads of the Frankish king's sons. From early youth their hair falls gracefully over their shoulders. It is parted on the forehead and falls equally on both sides. It is with them a matter to which they give special attention. We are told besides that they sprinkled it with gold dust and plaited it in small bands, which they ornamented with pearls and precious metals. Now, to cross-reference with a different source about the same topic to give this more validity, we also have a Byzantine historian by the name of Agathias, and he tells us, the practice of the Frankish kings never to have their hair cut. This custom has reserved this practice for royalty as a sort of distinctive badge and prerogative. We also have confirmation of this from the histories of Gregory of Tours, who tells us how important long hair was for the royal family of the Merovingian kings, and this is where we have mention of their rivals being forced to adopt tonsure. Now let's move spatially. What about the kings of Britain? The kings of Britain used their facial hair to create their own identity and to differentiate themselves from their predecessors. Henry III wore a short beard, as did Edward I, whilst Edward II wore a curled beard and a moustache with long curly hair. Edward III decided to wear his hair and beard even longer. Now, when it comes to the looks of knights, unfortunately evidence is fragmentary. So what we're going to do today is we're going to try and reconstruct this image ourselves. And first of all, we can't help but mention the Norman knights and their special hairstyle. By looking at Norman iconography and also reading the description of Norman knights, we know that they chose to keep their hair very short. It was short at the top and shaved to the sides and the back. Somehow modern looking if you think about it. Now this can help us to envision what a Norman knight looked like, but that was a characteristic of their culture and it kind of made them stand out. With that being said, what about the majority of knights? What about knights in England, knights in Italy, knights in Portugal, knights in Spain, knights in France? The first thing that we noticed is that we tend to see in the majority of iconography that knights with short hair are almost non-existent. They go from middle length to shoulder length. Many knights probably wore their hair long. Now, when it comes to my length, however, this is kind of rarer. It's not completely non-existent. There are representations of people wearing hair as long as mine, but it is very uncommon. And in the majority of scenes when there is a medieval knight and a medieval woman, they both have long hair, but the medieval woman is the one with the longest hair. However, I did find some interesting exceptions to this. Look at this very curious piece of iconography. It appears as a normal image or illumination representing knights fighting. But did you notice it? Could you spot it? Look at the plaits or the braids. These knights definitely have hair that is at least as long as mine, if not longer. Who knows how many knights are hiding very long hair underneath their helmets that we just don't see. So shoulder length hair would have been common, medium length hair would have also been common, and very long hair in men who were knights was also possible. What I'm about to share now is my own personal opinion based on the research that I've done in these past few days for this video. But I do believe that the times that we find knights with very long hair, they would all be actual nobility. Probably professional men-at-arms would have had their hair medium or shoulder length, but the nobility would be the one that could afford to have even longer hair than that. Of course, I can't prove it, but I think it could logically make sense. I might be onto something here. Alright, but if Merovingian and British royals wore their hair long, if knights wore their hair long, how did common people wear their hair? There are some clues hidden in the law texts. The Salic law considers the sharing of a long-haired boy without consent of his parents a serious offence. Meanwhile, the Burgundian law code puts a hefty fine on giving a criminal or slave even so much as a wig, implying slaves had to remain short-haired or bald. Medium-length hair may therefore have been the status signal of a free man, although the commoner's hair would have been shorter than the royal hairdo. Now, to give you a little bit of personal experience, how problematic is it to have long hair and wear armor? Well, as long as it's properly maintained and it's properly tied up when you're getting ready to wear your helmet, it makes no difference whatsoever. I wouldn't go around fighting like this. If I were a medieval lord, I would probably wear it down if I'm just in the city in a context of peace, even with my armor on. But in anything that has to do with combat, whether it be war, judicial duelings, the joust, I wouldn't wear it down. If I wasn't wearing a helmet, I would pull it in a high ponytail, which we know people did, or I would pull it in a bun or a low ponytail, or a plait if I was wearing a helmet. In fact, if it were me, I would choose the plait. Alright noble ones, well I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please remember thumbs up, and if you're not yet members of this community, become a noble one. Subscribe to my channel for more content from the Metatron. If you haven't already, check out Magic Spoon offer. It's amazing, and all you need to do is click the links in the description. Thank you very much for watching, and remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye.